Hello and welcome to another Craft and Chat. And if you've not been here before, then the whole idea is that we just share a bit of crafting together. They're quite long videos normally, sort of half hour plus quite often. And today I'm going to be working on a bit of making stuff out of this. So I'm going to make some rollags on my blending board and spin. Now, I also have reached a bit of a milestone. It is 5,000 plus subscribers on the channel now, which is just still mind-blowing to me. And a little while ago, I did ask if there were any questions, because it is a bit of a YouTube tradition for people to answer questions when they get to a milestone. So I've got 3 questions to ask. So my intention is to answer those during the video. Now, if we have not met, my name is Becca and I'm a hand spinner, knitter, natural dyer, newbie weaver, and all-round crafty type person. And you are very welcome to my slightly echoey conservatory in my bijou bungalow on the coast in Pembrokeshire, West Wales, UK. So without further ado, I am going to start some crafting. My last few videos have been very kind of specific project focused, very intentional. And sometimes, quite often, I just like to dive into the stash, pull out some colours that appeal to me and just spin because it's fun. And that's sort of what I'm doing today. So I'm going to turn the camera around and just show you what I'm doing on the blending board. I have got reds and pinks and all these colours, these very vibrant colours, these come out of a lap waist bag, or probably 2 lap waist bags if I'm absolutely honest. And I'm sort of getting to the end of my fibre that has been dyed with synthetic dyes, because I'm sort of trying to swap over to only using fibre that's been dyed with natural dyes. I don't know whether I'll actually stick to that because I do like vibrant colours, but we'll see. I've also pulled out a couple of things that are much more subtle. So this was dyed with damsons, so it's quite a pale colour. And then this was dyed with woad and yeast, and again quite a pale colour, but you know, we'll just see what they look like. Might look awful. I don't know, we'll find out, won't we? And of course I have to have a little bit of sari silk, recycled sari silk, although actually I think this red, I think this came out of a batch of lap waist, and I don't think it's sari silk, I think it's something else, but I'm gonna add a bit of that in because, you know, why not? Right, I'm going to change the camera angle so you can see the blending board and have a bit of fun making some rollags. I'm sharing my table with various bits of leaf that Andrew has been photographing. That's my partner, and he's been doing macro photography in here as well. Okay, now when I am playing on my blending board, particularly if I'm going to add a bit of kind of silky stuff, I like to lay down a base layer of wool, and this is Cambrian wool from the Cambrian Wool Company, maybe? I can't quite remember what they're called actually, but they work with farmers in mid Wales to create a extremely usable wool for both yarn and spinning. This is all a bit compacted because it has been dyed in a hot dye bath, but it'll pull apart. And they select very, very nice mule fleeces. Mule meaning it is crossed, in this case, between the local Welsh mountain sheep and blue-faced Leicester. And I will link their details in the description below. Now, one of the things I have been noticing on the channel is that quite a lot of people are actually watching on the television, and one of the things that you can't actually do on the television is go under the description and click the details. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get over that. I sort of have some ideas about creating like a written piece of information, sort of the way that podcasts do, and then you can have a QR code that you could scan, and then you could get to the details of, you know, sort of the different fibres I've been working with. So that is one idea. I don't know, I'll have to think about that a bit more, because it all starts getting a bit serious, doesn't it, when I start doing that? And I don't know how seriously I want to take this channel, really, which is one of the things I want to talk about, because I've said it many times before, and if you are new here, obviously you won't have heard it, but if you are not new here, you will have heard me say it many, many times before. I just started this channel on a whim, and it has been a huge surprise to me that it has kind of taken off the way it has. I mean, I was fully expecting to be 2 years before I even got close to 1,000 subscribers, and I got to 1,000 subscribers in 8 months, which, you know, I mean, just is mind-blowing to me. So to reach the 5,000 mark now is just, wow, it's amazing. And I'm hugely grateful, and it has been so wonderful to YouTube meet all these amazing fibre artists from across the globe, and I absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it. But if I start taking it a bit too seriously, then am I going to lose some of that joy, which I really don't want to do? Okay, so I've got a nice base layer of fibre. That's going to mean that when I try and lift off my rollags, the silky stuff won't get left behind, because it will be in front of this base layer of fibre, of like woolly fibre, wool. And yeah, that will help. So the next thing I'm going to do is just brush it down with my puppy combing brushing brush that came from the pet shop and was, I don't know, £3 instead of, what is it? I don't know how much a flick harder is. 25 quid, I suppose. I mean, really, I could buy one, but I'm a bit of a skinflint, quite honestly. So there you go. I mean, I've used paintbrushes, but this is kind of what's working for me at the moment. Although it's losing its bristles, so I probably do actually need to kind of be sensible and actually buy a flick harder. Okay, what colour am I going to put on next? I think we'll go with some of this sort of pale lavender sort of thing that's going on. That was the woad and yeast. Sorry, I've just kicked the tripod, so I might actually just have to make sure everything's still in shot. I'll be back in a moment. Yes, we're still good. We're still good. Now, because these are quite pale colours, it's going to be very subtle, and they are going to very much sort of merge together, which can be a nice effect. And, you know, that I've chosen them kind of on purpose, that they're in the same sort of family of colours. I mean, when you're just making a sort of a random bat, it is really tempting to just put everything in it. And sometimes it works, and sometimes you make something not very nice. I know, I've done it many, many, many times. Right, so it's quite sort of lavender, sort of pretty colour going on. Right, okay. So now I think I'm going to add something that's a bit kind of wild, and let's put some of this silky stuff in. So this is going to be quite a contrast, but you can tell it's not a kind of a premium product, because there's a bit of uneven sort of dye patches, which obviously happened in production, which is why it ended up in the lap waist, but for our purposes, that's going to work absolutely fine. Yeah, so what was I talking about? Colour. Yeah, colour. So try and think about how your colours are going to blend and how you're going to get our good old friend optical blending, and you know, how much muddiness do you want in your colour? Because sometimes you want some nice kind of muted tones, and muddiness is fine because it's not muddiness, is it? It's kind of mutedness, and that can look very attractive. But if you kind of pick things that, if they blend together, are going to create something quite pretty, then you know, you should be okay. So I've sort of gone for blues and reds and pinks and mauves, and they're all sort of, if they mix together, which obviously they're going to, because I'm kind of being quite sort of, I'm not creating individual stripes, I'm creating layers. Yeah, I'm creating, right, what am I trying to say? Because I'm creating layers, it is going to kind of blend quite a lot. So blue and red get you purple. And in theory, that should be fine. So let's have a bit of this. This is just, you know, only got this little bit left. And again, it will have come out of lap waist. I had this whole period where I was buying a lot of lap waist. I think I've sort of got over that now. I've got that out of my system. And I'm sort of going into a new phase. So obviously you could blend on a drum carder, you can blend on a hackle, you can blend on combs, you can blend on hand cards. It's all fine. You don't need a blending board. This is a homemade blending board. You can buy blending boards, or you can buy a carding cloth and just attach it to a board of some kind. Yeah, no, I don't think I like that. I won't put that on. Let's have a bit more kind of redness going on. So I am quite tempted to keep this as a single. I was kind of looking at my weaving book and thinking, yeah, I want to do a bit of, I want to work with some singles, I think. So I think this probably will be a single. Right. This has got a kind of a bit of a red, white and blue vibe to it, hasn't it? But I think that's going to disappear. I mean, the dominant colour is going to be red, which is sort of what I want. I'm in a red kind of mood. Colours definitely have moods, and they definitely have a kind of an energy. And red is one of my favourite colours. I switch between red and purple. So which one is my favourite colour? Right, I'm going to put a bit more of this sort of slightly grey mauve in. And I think we're getting to the point where the tines are almost full. I think I might put a bit more of that silky stuff on. Actually have a look at my, do I want that pink in there? No, I don't think I do. I want that pink in there. I'll put some more of this silky red on. So as always, feel free to share what you're working on. It's always nice to know what other folk are doing. I know people have shared that they quite often are doing a project along with me, and I'm just keeping them company in the background, which is fantastic. I love that. Somebody was telling me they were warping up something crazy like not 500, 400, I think it was 400 ends they were warping, and I was like, wow. I mean, I'm really enjoying using my rigid heddle loom, but the thought of 400 ends does not fill me with joy. I don't think that's something I'm ever going to do, but I really love using that little loom that I've got. I just love it so much. Right, let's have a little bit more of this pale pink from the damsons. Try not to kick the tripod again, because that was a very close run thing. I nearly kicked you again. Right. I think that's going to be it. I did pull out a bit of this chestnut, but I think that is not right, really. Okay, let's just clean this down. And there are little bits of blooming brush coming out, so I'm going to have to pick those out as I'm spinning. Yep, time for a new brush. I don't know what I'm going to choose. Probably should just buy a flick carder, shouldn't I? So I have my dowels. If you have never done this before, then you sort of create a sandwich, one dowel each side, and what you're aiming to do is just sort of pull it down a little bit and roll it over. But when you do the rolling over bit, don't pull it too tight because you'll never get your dowels out. So just relax it a little bit and then pull it down and relax and pull it down. And you will slowly start to, I mean, I did this a little bit unevenly, it has to be said, but you kind of start to just catch up the fibres. I'm not sure that that was the world's best demonstration of making a rollag, but we'll see. We're getting there. Okay, and I'm really liking the way this is looking, which is always a good sign. And I think that's probably enough on that one. Now, if I'd got that really tight, we'd really struggle to get these off. I mean, they're a little, this is going to be a little bit tight because I didn't. Okay, so then we just do that. And I mean, it's quite tight, this rollag, but it does pull off. And then we've got a lovely little rollag. And isn't that looking pretty? Let's just kind of flick the ends up a bit and see if I can do this a little better. Okay, so there you go. Redo that. Now, my neighbour has just started splitting logs, so I don't know whether you're going to be able to hear that in the background. My neighbour's amazing. So she's 77. She got knocked off her bike 20 years ago, kind of left for dead at the side of the road, had very serious brain injury, and has sort of come back and fought her way back to good health, and now splits her own logs. I mean, she used to split her own logs before, but sort of gone back to splitting her own logs and kind of living her best life in her little bungalow by the sea. She's a lovely lady. And when we first moved in, she was one of the first people to kind of come and say hello to us. And obviously because Andrew had a brain injury, then they connected over that. And really we've been chatting to each other ever since. I see her lesser in the winter. She used to have a lovely poodle, but she was very old and she's passed away, so I don't see her as much out walking, but I do see her still. And I mean, gosh, we've been here 8 years, I think. Nearly 9 years, which is amazing. Okay, so that was a better one. I'm trying to pick out these the rogue brush fibres, hairs, bristles that have come off, because I don't want to spin those. Yeah, there you go. But you see, just by having that base layer of wool, it means that the silky stuff is all kind of integrated and has come up off the blending board really nicely, because it can get really stuck on the board if you're not careful. Ooh. So another thing I think is always worth bearing in mind when you are working with colour, and that is to include some neutrals in your design. They make such a huge difference. So neutrals are sort of greys and browns and beiges, and I mean white, black and white, yes, but black and white can be quite harsh. There's such high contrast that sometimes you're better off going with a dark brown or a dark grey if you want a dark contrast than you are going with black. Right, there we go. That's the last one done. Let's see if I can actually get this off the dowels. And that is going to be my little spinning project for this afternoon. Right, let's turn this camera around. So today, as usual, I am spinning on my 1980s Ashford traditional. I have a polyband rather than a cotton band, just because I like spinning with polybands. She would originally have come with a cotton band, drive band I'm talking about, and single treadle, single drive, and that didn't work, did it? I really do need to put a new leader on this. It's very scrappy. I mean, really, really scrappy and quite short. And the last thing I spun on here was the, what was it? The nettle fibre. And I definitely don't have the tension right. I'm going to turn the tension right down and let's try and build up some twist. And there you go. Right. So I've got lots of twist built up there so that hopefully she's not going to snap. I'm going to turn this tension back up a little bit. Right, we're spinning. Hurrah, hurrah. Okay, let me just sit. Right, I'm not very comfortable. Hang on a minute. That's better. Oh, I hope you're still in shot. Right, okay, that's better. I have 3 questions, and I've written down people who asked me the questions because otherwise I'd never remember them. And the first question was from Fibre Arts with Mimi, and she says, do I have any children or grandchildren? Not unless you count dogs. I am a dog mum and a very proud auntie. And the next question was from Hope, and she asked me, what is my favourite hobby? Oh my goodness, Hope. How on earth can I possibly answer that? I've been thinking about this because the questions have been on the community post for a little while, and I was like, I don't know. What is my favourite hobby? Oh, I don't know. Probably whatever I happen to be doing at the time is my favourite one. But if I could do only one hobby for the rest of my life, and it was the only one I was allowed to do, it would be spinning. I don't quite know what I would do with all the hand spun that I spun, but it would be spinning because I just love it so much and I find it incredibly relaxing. And I know I've shared this before, but I'm neurodivergent, and my brain sometimes is like I've got 10 squirrels living up there and they're all on speed. So to actually find something that sort of just cuts down the crazy is just amazing. And that's what spinning does. It just kind of makes me focus and just kind of, yeah, it is relaxing and peaceful and my happy place. But equally, you know, I can be doing something else. So I can be weaving or knitting or natural dyeing. And in that moment, that is absolutely my favourite. I mean, I'd say fibre prep runs a very second place to spinning. So I don't know whether you count fibre prep in with spinning. Maybe if I can only do one thing, then the fibre prep is included. And I mean all of it, you know, kind of skirting and scouring and yeah, all of it. So yeah, I think spinning is the honest answer. But how? How do I choose? So, what is your favourite hobby, Hope? Could you choose? I guess that goes out to everybody, really. What's your favourite fibre art or your favourite hobby? Can you choose? Could you choose just one if you were only allowed one for the rest of your life? What would that hobby be? I think that's a really, really difficult question. I think so many of us are multi passionate. You know, we kind of probably started with maybe knitting or crochet, and then it spreads out and we kind of think, oh, I'll have a go at spinning, and you kind of go, oh, I'll try some weaving, and you kind of, oh, maybe I'll do some dyeing, and you know, kind of, and before you know it, you're keeping sheep. Well, no, I will never be keeping sheep. I've kind of done my time looking after sheep. I enjoyed it at the time. I mean, they weren't my sheep. They were, I was going to say, I used to help my friend look after his sheep. And I enjoyed it at the time, but I don't need to do it again. So there you go. That is my answer. Right, I haven't done a plyback test, so let's just see. Oh, that's a little bit pigtaily. Bit pigtaily. I think we need that going a little bit faster. Oh, and there's another one of those bristles. Take that bristle out. I definitely need a new brush, don't I? So the next question is from Zab Lab Textiles, who is a young textile artist who has a channel on YouTube. And she asked me to talk a bit about my fibre arts journey. Oh gosh, this is going to be a long video, isn't it? Right. I very much started off sewing, and one of the main reasons is because that's what we did at school. Sort of as part of your kind of art class, we did sewing, and we kind of made a tote bag and kind of, actually that's probably all we did make, wasn't it? It probably took us all term to make that. So yeah, so we made, first thing was sewing, and we made a tote bag. Oh, we did some embroidery as well, and sort of I was very, very into embroidery at one time. There was a program in the 1980s on probably BBC Two that was all about embroidery. I mean, can you believe it? On terrestrial television, there was like this program that, I don't know how many series it was, but it was just embroidery and it was fabulous. So I was very into that, and I kind of used to go to the library with my mum and my sisters, and we'd all kind of choose a library book, and I would choose kind of sewing and embroidery and textile art. And I mean, I must have been 9 or 10, I should imagine. Then the next thing was macrame. And again, that's because that's what we did at school. And I kind of got a bit obsessed with it at the time and made sort of hanging hanging basket things. What am I trying to say? You put your pot plants in them, and yeah. So I made one of those, and then I used to make various kind of leads for the various animals that we put on halters, and yeah, that was kind of for a bit. That was it, and then there was a wool shop, or as I think we now all refer to them as a yarn shop, but at the time we called it a wool shop. There was a wool shop in the village, and I used to go in there, and my granny on my dad's side was a big knitter, but she lived a long way away, so she never taught me to knit. But I kind of was aware of this whole kind of knitting thing. And aged 11, I sort of persuaded my mum that she would buy me some knitting needles and some yarn, and I would learn to knit. Now, my mum knew how to cast on, she knew how to kind of do knit and purl, but really that was it. I'm cast off. I mean, she kind of, again, she'd done it at school. You know, she was at school in the 1950s, and you had to learn to knit, and she learned to knit a scarf. It wasn't really her thing. So, yeah, that's as much as she did. And I just kind of taught myself the rest. I've never been a particularly good technical knitter. I just knit what I enjoy. Um, I am left-handed, and my mum is right-handed, so it was never going to be a brilliant success, really. But I throw my stitches, and I'm a very slow knitter in every single sense of the word. But it's kind of since I was 11, I just kind of messed about and made jumpers and scarves and hats and socks and various things. So that was kind of me for a long time. I carried on sewing as well. I mean, I would say really sewing was my main thing. And considering these days, I tried to get back into it, and I did share that on the channel ages ago, and I kind of thought, oh no, quilting's going to be my thing. And I tried to get back in it and got my sewing machine out and kind of started sewing, and do you know what? I cannot stand sitting at the sewing machine. Can't stand it. I don't mind hand sewing. In fact, I like hand sewing, and I think slow stitching is a bit more my style these days. But no, sitting at the sewing machine, quilting, no, not going to be for me. And I was finishing a woven tea towel that I'd made couple of nights ago. I was finishing it, and I thought, shall I get the machine out and hem this? I was like, no, I'm going to hem it by hand. I just couldn't stand it. I don't know if it's the noise, I don't know what it is, but I really, really don't want to sit at the sewing machine. So sewing, I can do it. I mean, I'm really actually not too bad at it. Or I used to be very good at it. I mean, I made a ball dress that I wore to a couple of balls that I was involved in. It was actually for work, but I used to work for a university in the catering department, and we used to get invited to the student end of year balls, and I made my own ball dress and wore it for a couple of years, and kind of used to make curtains and skirts and all sorts of things. I mean, really, I made a huge amount of my own clothing right into my mid-20s. But sort of in my mid-20s, my job started getting a little bit more demanding, and I kind of let sewing go by the wayside. And I still actually have the sewing machine I bought at that time, so we're talking the 1990s. But really, I've made a couple of bags, and I've made a quilted not a quilted, a patchwork cushion, and kind of bits and pieces. But no, I just have not carried it on. So where did spinning come in? Spinning didn't really come in until about 20 years ago, and I was just looking it up, and I think it will be 20 years in 2026. And I was still knitting, and then I kind of was always interested in how stuff is done, how it works, and I certainly had been very interested in dyeing, and I'd done quite a lot of kind of dyeing, first off with sort of cold water dyes, Dylon cold water dyes. And then I found this book in a charity shop, which was all about natural dyes, and I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. And I used to buy old Aran sweaters, unpick them, I mean, sacrilege, and dye them in my mum's kitchen. My poor mum. My poor mum. But I started with kind of onion skins and kind of various things like that, and just sort of messed about and read more books and just have been experimenting ever since, really. But I mean, it was before the internet, so you had to kind of get stuff mail order, anything like your alum. You had to either talk to your chemist very nicely, and when I say chemist, if you're watching this in the States, I think you would call that a drugstore. So you go to your chemist and have to order alum sulfate, and they kind of looked at you sideways as to why on earth you might need this. And then anything else, really, you'd have to order, kind of mail order. And of course, there wasn't the internet, so it was all very specialist, or you kind of go to a very kind of overstuffed craft shop, where again, they would kind of look at you a little bit weird if you were kind of into natural dyes. I mean, in the 70s, I think it would have been quite normal, but sort of by the 90s, really, I mean, it was all about the chemical dyes, the dyons. It was kind of, I mean, you think about 90s fashion, we were kind of tie-dyeing with those bright colours, lots of neon going on. But yeah, I just kind of was fascinated by it. And I am a gardener, and both my parents are passionate gardeners. So I kind of got very into the idea of plants and just researching their use. And yeah, so it just kind of went on from there. Yeah, so as I say, kind of 20 years ago, I was kind of looking about at an auction. I was actually at an auction, and there was an Ashford traditional for sale at the auction. And I kind of looked at it and thought, oh, I'd really, that's something I really want to do. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know kind of how to even start. And there was, of course, the Guild. So there's the Spinners and Weavers Guild, but that was always on a Saturday. And I worked in catering, so I was always working. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Anyway, cut quite a long story short. No, I'm not cutting this short at all. This is a really long story. Anyway, so kind of, I think it's either 19 or 20 years ago. Anyway, whatever kind of amount of time it is, there was a lady who started a craft shop in Clevedon in North Somerset, and they still exist, but they have actually moved a couple of times. And that was a lady called Sarah Harris, and she started the shop, and she was a hand spinner, and they started classes. And I was like, right, I can actually get to these because they're in the week. I think it was evenings or weekdays. Anyway, I could get to them. So I was like, right, I'm going to do this. And I just loved it, absolutely loved it. And I had a spindle to start with, and I learned on a spindle, and then very quickly moved on to spinning on a wheel. And she had a friend in one of the villages just along the road from us who kept Lincoln longwalls, and she was a production spinner. And she suggested, this was Sarah, that maybe I would go and see this lady because she would be able to teach me all about fibre prep. So I used to go along to see this lady who has now moved, and I mean, I've completely lost touch with her. But anyway, she taught me fibre prep, and it was kind of washing, scouring. She had a big electric carder. It was a Louet. Louet? Yeah, it is Louet, isn't it? I always want to say Louis, but it's not because it's not French. It's Louet. Yeah, so she had this big carder and she used to card up her wool, and she taught me how to process, and she helped me with my spinning. She had an Ashford Elizabeth, so I learnt more and more on an Ashford tradition, not on a traditional, on an Ashford Elizabeth. And then at a certain point, I thought, right, it is time to buy my own wheel. And I did the thing you should never do. I bought it off eBay, and I bought a Louet, but it had Irish tension. And of course, I'd learned on Scotch tension, and I really didn't get on with it. And I hadn't really paid very much for it. So I just put it back on eBay and bought myself this little wheel, this Ashford Traditional, Geraldine, who, as I've probably shared before, no, I know I've shared this before, is named after the character in The Vicar of Dibley, Geraldine, because that was kind of the show I was watching at the time. And I had a couple of friends that kept sheep, other than this lady who kept the Lincoln Longwools, and they kept Jacobs and Llyn, and I used to help out. So I was given my pick of the fleeces. And yeah, and I've just been messing about with spinning and dyeing and knitting ever since. And I love it. So that was a very, very long answer to a fairly straightforward question as to what was my journey to fibre arts. And it's never been something that I've sort of tried to make a living out of. I mean, I know YouTube pay me a little bit, but trust me, it's only a little bit. And it just helps to pay for kind of the software for editing and for the music that I sometimes use, because you've got to use like the right type of music, because otherwise you kind of you get a copyright strike and various things. And also when people are kind enough to either do a super chat or buy me a coffee, then any of that goes towards buying fibre to demonstrate on the channel. And yeah, it's great. I love it, and it helps keep me sane. If you've been here a while, you'll know that when I was in my mid-40s, my partner had a life-changing brain injury, which meant that we had to give up our business, and I gave up my job. And yeah, our life changed completely. So I went from having a full-time job plus working in our business, being very, very busy, to basically being a carer and a housewife, which is something I had never done before. Andrew is, he's more than capable of doing housework, and we used to share the housework, we used to share the cooking, we used to share the work in the business. So it was a nasty shock to the system to find myself kind of doing it all. I was like, oh, I don't think I like this very much. And yeah, so I kind of had to reinvent myself, really, if that makes sense. And Andrew is unable to do all the things that he loved. So he found photography as to something that he was able to do, despite the fact that he has quite a lot of restrictions on his mobility. he is in constant pain and deals with terrible fatigue. Despite all those things, he's found photography as his kind of outlet. And I really wanted an outlet as well. And I started learning, I'm going off subject slightly, but to cut a long story, trying to cut a long story. I'm not cutting a long story short at all. I was going to say to cut a long story short. No, I'm not cutting it short. I learned how to be a graphic designer online, teaching myself. I started a small business doing that, and that kind of was sustaining me and stopping me from going crazy. And a couple of years ago, well, just before I started the channel, really, things completely changed in that space, and AI took over illustration. I mean, obviously you can still illustrate, but it kind of everything changed really. And I was like, kind of, I think I'm going to need to find something else to do, because what I'm doing now is not really going to last. I need to find something to do. And I was in a real funk. I mean, I just was really kind of down about the whole thing. And because I really, really love graphic design, it just is, I find it so satisfying. And I have also been teaching myself with the help of various kind of courses and memberships and things. I've been teaching myself fabric design as well. But, it's going to be, AI has changed everything. And I kind of thought, wow, I need to do something else. I'm not actually ready to retire. Kind of not putting too fine a point on it. I can't afford to retire. I mean, I only work part-time, but still that little bit of money that I bring in just makes all the difference between us kind of never being able to do anything other than just exist, to being able to kind of put petrol in the car and go out and, kind of have occasional little holidays. And it's our kind of happy money, if that makes sense. And it's kind of like, right, I have to do something else. And I was just so stuck. I was so stuck. I didn't know what to do. And I sort of started playing around with YouTube. I didn't actually think I was going to be a YouTube millionaire. I never kind of thought that. I don't really know what I thought, actually. I was doing it because I was in a funk and I needed something else to do. And since that time, I've kind of decided that I'm just going to, as I say, learn how to do fabric design. And I'm starting to make a little bit of money by being on Spoonflower, and I'm also including it in the kind of my other shop I have, which is on Zazzle. And in the meantime, just making videos has become just such a joy. And that was a very long way of saying I like doing YouTube because it's fun. And right, I'm going to stop now because I've just waffled on for ages. Anyway, right, how's this spin going? I don't know, because I'm not really concentrating. I'm just sort of spinning. And one of the things I quite often say about kind of spinning on YouTube is I'm always a little bit reluctant to do kind of really detailed how to spin videos, because I just sort of spin. I've forgotten what it's like to be a beginner, and I do it very kind of instinctively, and it's muscle memory. And I have 1.5 rollags left to go, and I'm probably going to have to call it a day because I'm going to have to go and walk the little dog in a minute. By the time I came back from walking and making cups of tea and various things, it was dark, so it was no good to film, but I have finished the little sample, and I'll give you a proper kind of overhead look at it at the end of the video. So I like some of it and I don't like other bits of it, but that's sort of one of the reasons I do these sort of little spins. And I think of it as keeping my fibre artist sketchbook. So as somebody who draws and paints, I have lots of sketchbooks and I'm practicing things and experimenting all the time. And that's sort of what I'm doing when I just go, no, I'm just going to spin something and play around on the blending board. And it just really helps me to get my eye in and to come up with colour combinations that are actually going to work. So I hope you found that useful. I hope I answered the questions that you were kind of wanting to hear. And yeah, 5,000 subscribers. Oh my goodness, how did that happen? And looking forward to the next 5,000. So it's overall quite pink with the kind of the subtle greys in there. And I like this very much. And I ended up chain plying it, but I'm going to add a couple more things to it. And this, I think, is going to be the basis of a shrug or a bolero or whatever you like to call them. So there you go. Thank you for watching and see you next time.